All right, Kathy, we're good.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm going to call the advisory committee meeting to order on January 19th at 7:31 p.m. Everyone is here except for Adam and Tom Wilson. Tom Wilson's not expected to be here. Adam is shortly. All right. Let's see who's here. Okay, so I didn't have a chance to read the minutes that Claire sent around mid-afternoon. Did anyone else have a chance to read them enough that we could approve them?
I did.
I read them and sent Claire some edits, but I'm fine if we wait another meeting.
All right, so let's just wait till next week and we'll do both at the same time. Okay, Claire?
Yeah, that's fine. Just a couple things, guys. I just wanted to make sure, in my mind, there's still some misunderstanding. I can't get an understanding of the St. Mark's Park. So if anybody has some recommendations in terms of how I wrote that, that would be great. I'd appreciate that. The other thing is,
Okay, so what's that got to do with last week's minutes?
because the minutes reflect what happened during the.
So you're talking about when we discussed the previous week's
Okay,
minutes?
all right, I see what you're saying.
All right, so call me and we'll get it worked out, okay?
Okay, sounds
Get
good.
it worked out, I promise.
Perfect.
All right. Okay. So we've got a busy night. So let's keep moving here. So chair report, not a lot to report. Mr. Purple's here tonight, so we're going to bring him over shortly. So I am going to ask him to update us on anything that he thinks is important for us to know, including when the decision on town meeting is going to be made as far as he knows. Right now, we still have the two dates, April 30th and May 7th, that are being held. They're both Saturdays. So I know nothing else but those two dates. So he may have more up-to-date information as far as that goes, because that obviously is very important that that gets solidified at some point soon. Tomorrow night at 7:30 is a very important meeting of the Capital Investment Planning Committee, where they're going to have the consultant that was hired to basically recommend how to use Woodward if that building gets closed, as far as what other town departments could fit in there nicely. So it's going to be an interesting night. So my guess is it's going to be well attended. But 7:30, I have posted a meeting. So as many of us wants to go, we can go. You're not required to go, but if you go, we are legal. We can discuss things we want to at the meeting. So that's done. Then Friday morning is another important meeting. So the Capital Planning Committee, School Research Committee, of which I'm one of three members, is going to meet at 10 o'clock. And we are going to be discussing two reports. One is going to be a report that I've written in conjunction with an outside consultant as far as the use of MSBA funding. And then the bigger report, the more important report, is the one that Jason Malinowski has written in draft form. That is going to be the one that we present to the entire school committee. We think probably their first meeting in February. They meet on Wednesdays. So that's what we think is going to happen. It might be, if they've got too much on the agenda that night, it might be a special meeting, but it's going to be soon. So we are about to wrap up our work as far as a recommendation to the school committee on whether we believe a school could be closed based on projected school population. And if so, which school we think would be the better one to close. So that's coming to a head pretty fast. So there's that. So that's the chair's report for tonight, but I'm sure Mr. Purple will have some interesting things to share with us when we bring him over. Okay, so we're going to start with IT tonight. Eric, you're going to bring over Angela Varner. You're going to bring over Jason. You're going to bring over the Probst family, which is Matt. And why don't you go ahead and bring over Brian, Valentine, and Mark too, because they are very interested in this budget too.
On it.
And Adam's waiting as well.
He's in now.
Okay.
Oh.
There he is. Hey, Adam.
Hey.
Nice timing, Adam.
Yeah, I was having an issue for some reason. The link in the invite was on Teams instead of Zoom. I don't know if that was happening to other people.
Well, Jason can probably explain what I did. I don't know how I did that. I didn't know we had a choice of teams, but somehow I got these meetings set up on Teams. Jay assured me I was still okay with what I did. But you're right, when you go into the invite on our thing, it says join Teams meeting. So I just don't click it because I know we're not doing Teams, we're doing Zoom. So I don't know how I did it. Maybe Jason wants to explain how I did it if we got time, but I did do it that way. It's my fault. And he says we're still fine from forward, that we don't have to correct it, but maybe we do. So anyway, I don't know. I don't know how I did what I did. Okay, so let me introduce everybody here so everybody knows who we're dealing with. So for our guest tonight, let me introduce the advisory committee because we have 4 new members from the last time we met with you guys. So starting at the way I see everybody, Eric Fernandez is new. Tim Martell, you've met many times and you know he's our resident expert on IT. Marcy Jones is new. Adam Nodif is new. And that's it as far as the new people that are here tonight. We got one person's missing. So the carryovers are myself, Andrew Pfaff, and Tim Martell, who you've met many times. Okay, and then as far as our guest tonight, let me start with Town Administrator Mark Purple. Where's Brian? Is Brian here? I don't see Brian.
I tried to bring him over a couple times. I don't know if he's denying us or just didn't see the.
Well, he may not think he's this part, but okay, so we'll get him over when he gets back to the screen. So he's our town treasurer. Jay Montijo is our IT director. And let's see, so Angela Varner. So then the rest of the people are on the Municipal Technology Committee, of which there are 4 members. So Angela Varner is here and Matt Probst is the chair. Okay. All righty. So Tim, I'm going to turn this over to you in a minute, but as far as background to the new advisory members, this is a budget or a department that advisory has been extremely interested in for a few years because of our concern about all of the risks that are out there in the world we live in as far as IT stuff. We had years ago, we used to actually contract out our IT work, and then we decided that we wanted to have a full-time person to do most of it. So we hired a person for the first time, help me Mark, 6 years ago, something like that, maybe 7, 5. Okay, so 5 years ago. So we had a full-time person as our IT person. And then as time went on, we started worried that we didn't have enough people in that department, that it was just too risky to basically rely on one person. And then that person resigned in November of 2020. And Jay was hired in April of 2021. So we did go 5 months without having a person in position. So it kind of bore out what our concern was. So last year in the budget, advisory and MTC, both collectively, really pushed to have a second position added to IT. And that position was added, it was approved. The person was in the budget for 7/1/21. And it's my understanding that they are actively seeking to hire that person, which Jay, you can update us on in a second. I'm just trying to give some background here as far as details go. Tim Martell on advisory is probably the most knowledgeable person on advisory as far as IT stuff, although we've got some others that are pretty good too. And he has kind of led the charge as far as trying to make sure we're aware of all the risks that we face in this world today. So with that, Tim, why don't I turn this over to you to kind of start the discussion over, and then we can bring up the budget, start looking at it, and let everybody start telling us what they want us to know as far as this budget goes.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. So I think there are, I would say probably there are at least 3 things we want to at least touch on tonight. One, of course, is the budget. It's a complicated budget this year because of some accounting changes as well as some transfers from other departments. Carlo was kind enough to provide a breakdown of how the different line items changed from 22 to 23. So that I had a chance to look at it just earlier. It's very helpful. So we should probably take a look at that as well tonight. On top of the MIS budget itself, we have MTC here. And we should talk about their long-term plans, status of, what the status might be and how that plays into the budget. And then the third thing that we can talk, if there's interest, is this rising risk that's Hipaa related. And it's really mainly driven in terms of scope. It's really mainly driven by the Youth and Family Services in terms of privacy and severity of the data. So that said, I assume, Kathy, you'd want to start with the budget. Who's going to bring the budget up?
So I've got it. If Eric will let me share my screen.
See if that works for you.
Can everyone see the spreadsheet?
Yep.
That's it. Okay.
Is it there?
Jason, do you want to walk us through this?
Yeah, no problem.
And you
So-
might, you know, feel free to pop back and forth between the different tabs. You know, if you know, just for my fellow advisory members, if you look at column G, you're going to see some pretty severe percent changes. So that, you know, don't get hung up too much on that. You know, we can look at the more detailed sheet. But I'll turn it over to you, Jason.
Yeah, if you don't mind going to the FY23 tab, I believe it is. Yeah, so if you scroll up a little bit there for me, top. So some things that might stick out that are new for this year's budget is the 3 last line items under software. And also software as a whole is new to the department. I just wanted to separate what software applications are purchased through the year that are yearly costs, and also contracted services below that. So it was just, in my theory, it helped me decipher between what was software related and what was like physical equipment, and also like firewalls and stuff like that, to that sense. So the 3 very last items under software are new this year, which is Duo, Two-Factor Authentication, Cisco Umbrella Services, which is a DNS entry security service, and the print solution design photos, which is Canva. Not a really hot ticket, you know, as far as a large item. It's $400, but it is another annual cost. And then below, if you scroll down, Kathy, for me to the almost near bottom,
All right.
you'll
So
see.
Jay, next to those 3 new ones, you say new in fiscal year 22. Do you mean fiscal year 23?
Well, they were purchased.
Were they new in fiscal year 22?
Yeah, they were purchased in 22, and so
Okay.
they're going to be reoccurring costs annually
Okay.
going forward.
All
Yeah.
right. Is this good enough?
Just a little bit, almost near the bottom, actually. I just want to point out the new items at the bottom.
Okay.
Right, in green, right there. So currently now we have the police, library, and fire department for their replacement hardware. So if they're purchasing a laptop, it's now under my budget, which this is something that was directed by the select board, but also it made sense for me to kind of really know what's being purchased for the town, and also be able to manage and inventory what equipment is being purchased for the town. So that's all now being added to the IT budget. Any questions so far? Those are like the main hit off items that I have on.
Well, let's just real quick jump back to the fiscal year 23 budget so we can see the 2 numbers where I've got my cursor. The 732 is this number. The 531 excludes those 3 items. So that's his more normalized number. So keep that in mind when you're looking at 732. It's really 531. But of course, the other 3 budgets we looked at are really higher than what they show too. So that's the difference in those 2 numbers. Okay, sorry, Jay, I'll go back to this.
No, not a problem. Not a problem.
Okay.
Some other items that are on here is the internet connection under data communication. I have doubled that number for adding a secondary ISP to the town. Again, that's a doubled number, but I still have to research what ISP provider I can find out there and what that number is going to be. Hopefully, it doesn't go up too much higher, but it could be higher or lower. Just ballpark to double the annual cost that we currently are paying for our current ISP provider. Under contracted services, I'd say the number that kind of went up a little bit was the copier maintenance, and that kind of had to do with the Board of Health and the printer that we added to their building. And under program and security, that number did drop from 50K last year to 25K this year. That's mainly going to be towards any type of penetration testing for the town, security results, kind of seeing where we are as far as safety for the town and cybersecurity. Those are the
So do you
main-
mean that analysis is still ongoing? It's just going to be a continual analysis? I thought that was done.
No,
So,
so we did with, if you're talking about the military, that was a free, they did a free assessment, which kind of reviewed where our holes might be in the town. I'm looking more towards an actual pen testing, like the pen testing to see how strong and resilient our network is and where our weaknesses are in our network, like actually having them hammer away at our network and see where our weaknesses are.
okay, so the assessment is done, right?
Yeah,
Complete?
the assessment is done.
All right,
Correct.
and you're basically responding to that assessment with what you want to do here?
Correct. So anything that I put in place to build up our security after I did that assessment with the military is now giving me the opportunity to now do a pen test to see where we are and if there are more holes, what we can do to fix those holes going forward.
You can,
Any
you can liken it like in the movies when the bank hires the criminal to rob them.
Yeah.
To test their security. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions on anything?
I just want to mention Matt has his hand up and has for a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt, good evening. Hello.
Good evening. Yeah, I just want to add to what Jason's saying. Yeah, the assessment that was done was basically the initial one-time free assessment, but any good organization really should budget for ongoing assessments, and so this is basically either a budget for either services, like professional services to come in and do another assessment, or software. Either way, it's going to cost money, and I think that's a good ballpark. So we're strongly in support of Jason's budget number for this. Basically, as you go along, there's this next year there's going to be new findings or new vulnerabilities that didn't exist last year when that initial assessment was done. So it's a constant sort of a cat and mouse game. So that's why budgeting for this on a continual basis is a good thing to do. So you're constantly stay on top of the vulnerabilities.
Okay.
I mean, those are like the main ticket items that I had on here. I really don't have too many more talking points besides any questions that you all might have. Some things did double because we do have a new employee coming on board. So like training, as well as travel. But also we have the salary budgeted at the midpoint currently for the second employee, whenever the second employee hopefully comes at some point soon, whenever we can find one.
Might be helpful, Kathy, to go to the other sheet. Not that one. Carla's sheet.
This one?
Yeah. I think column D is informative.
Yeah, for all of you especially.
Yeah.
We also did a deep dive with Jason at last night's MTC meeting. So the full MTC is in alignment with this budget and supportive of all of the asks that Jason's putting forward.
Well, that's definitely helpful. So Jay, where do you stand with trying to find that second person?
Yeah, so we've had a couple of hit and misses recently, and I hope we're back to the drawing board right now. We haven't reposted. Working with Vanessa to try to look for different avenues on trying to get us out there a little bit more. It's a tough market. I was talking to someone today who's actually she works in the field with just hiring technology people, and she, she made some really good points. I had worked with her in the past at North Hill. She was the recruiter there, and she made some really good points. It's the market belongs to the people right now. They're the ones that are kind of calling the shots. So it's tough to find someone without meeting some of the specs that I'm looking for, and a lot of the people that have been applying for the job either are coming from financial backgrounds, or let's just say that have nothing to do with IT, and they're applying for the job. So it's a really weird situation right now with what I'm finding out there. I have faith we're going to find someone. We just need a little bit more time, obviously, to work on that. And we're just not going to, pull the trigger on someone just to pull the trigger on someone. I want to make sure I have somebody in there that's, going to meet the need, and also have the background that I need to get the job done as well. So just a little bit more work ahead. Believe me, I really do need that person right now. And we are working hard to get that person. It's just going to take a little bit more time to get there.
Well, as you know, we know you need the second person, so we're all for the second person. So no argument from advisory, as far as I know. So I just think it's weird that someone would apply for the job that had no IT background at all. I mean, what are they thinking?
Yeah, and it's not that, it's gaps in their employment, or I've been finding a lot of people who have had 10 IT jobs in the last 3 years, and it's like, how? So a couple of red flags there. So things like that I'm seeing, that it's definitely like, how, what's going on right now.
So you have no support at all right now? You're doing everything yourself?
Yeah.
Now be honest, because that's what I think is the case. I want everybody to understand this.
And I am, but I also, there's a lot of people in town that assist me in ways that they can. So, especially with, all of these Zoom meetings that we have scheduled, there's, I give a shout out to Tim Davis. He helps me a lot with some of the scheduling in the background, especially when I was sick last week. He helped me out a lot. And there's a lot of people in town that are helping me out with equipment internally. It's like a printer goes down, they kind of have an idea of what to do. So I'm getting some assistance where I can, but yeah, it is all in my plate right now, and juggling as much as I can.
Tim, I would have sworn the following if I hadn't looked at this budget again from last year. I thought we still had some part-time hours in here also, because 2 years ago we had the part-time in there, right? That's what Tom Flam had requested, so that was in there. And that never really came to fruition. They had, somebody that helped with library, but they never really found somebody, to fill that role. The only person I found, though, only a few hours at it. So I guess that never got filled. So I guess what we did for fiscal year 22 is replace that with the full-time kind of more advanced person. So I thought Jay I thought he also had room for a, help desk type person too, but I guess he doesn't.
I still have, and I sometimes forget because he works night times for me. I still do have Chris in the background that's doing like server patches for me, part-time. So I do have him on the side, but as far as like during the day, it is just me. But yeah, I do still have Chris part-time that's doing patches for me, at least for servers.
And whose budget is he in? Library?
He's in my budget.
He is in your budget?
Yeah, he was in the FY22 budget so far, and still budgeted for FY22.
But not under employees.
20.
He's under contracted services, possibly?
No, I don't know. I don't think you'll see it here under the 23 budget. You'll see it under the 22 budget, though.
Okay, so you think he is in the 22 budget someplace?
Yeah, he should be under the salary wages. Under salaries, wages, part-time.
Well, there's nothing there, though. It's zero.
Oh, that's interesting. I'll have to ask Carla where that number is, but it was definitely budgeted for FY22.
It's probably in row 22, contracted services.
So Jay, you feel comfortable with this budget? This is your budget. You've kind of scrubbed it as much as you possibly can.
Yes.
Okay, so this is what you want. I know Office 365 is about to push through a pretty big increase. Do you know that?
Yes, I've been getting a lot of the emails on that as well.
So is that reflected in this, or you just haven't had time to look at what?
That is actually currently the price that's the current price that I got spec'd by Microsoft this year.
Okay, so let's go back to that. So that is Exchange Online, possibly?
Exchange Online is the Office 365 licensing.
All right, so you think your 32 is going to include whatever the price increase?
Yes.
Or
And-
whatever.
And for any new licensing I might need in a time.
Right, so can we get into the weeds for a second while we've got all this expertise on this? So advisory has been trying to set up our own OneDrive folder where all advisory members can read, write, do whatever to it. And it looks like our license won't let us do that. So last year we had a subfolder under Brian Ballantyne's OneDrive folder. And this year we're moving it over under Jay. I just use OneDrive. We're all in the cloud in my office. I just understand why we can't have our own folder where we don't have to worry about Jay having to do anything. So, I mean, we just talked to him about he's doing everything. Why can't a committee have their own OneDrive standalone folder?
So it pertains to the licensing, and it really does. The licensing that you currently have only gives you that capability where you can at least access the different drives that I make available for you. And I would have to change your licensing type. But again, that pertains, that entails cost. So each tier up is another level of pricing for a license. And I'm already at a pretty tight place right now with licensing for internal employees. So if I did, I would literally have to purchase more licensing under the different classes, and I would have to find out if the G2 license is that class, or if it would have to be the G3 license for the Office for the OneDrive access. But I believe that the G2 would at least make that. But again, the pricing does go up, as opposed to just the minimum G1 license that you all have currently. And that's,
Okay,
that's
so,
for every.
so we're G1 and you're G2 or Brian's G2?
I'm a G3 license, and I believe it's G1 or it's called G1 or C1. I would have to look it up right now, so please don't quote me on it. But the license that you have is literally just the bare minimum for just emailing, and for me to create an email account for you and just emailing back and forth.
Okay, I now understand. You've told me, I now get why we can't do what we did. Okay, so we will try to minimize our trouble to you. But Brian Ballantyne can access that folder too, right?
Correct.
Okay, because he's the one that really needs to keep it updated for us. Okay, all right. All right. Okay, so let's start with Eric as far as questions for Jay and or MTC.
Guys, I don't have much. I've one, and this is going to be really silly, but I'll be the new guy who asks it. Can you guys just give me a better understanding? Social media and web archiving. Just walk me through that. Is that a pretty fixed cost? What are we actually doing there? I don't know. I guess I just don't. When I see social media, I get confused because I don't think of the town as having a whole lot of a social media presence. But again,
No.
I could be very naive.
Yeah. So what that is actually backing up everything that is. PageFreeze is the company that I'm using currently, and what they do is they're actually archiving all communications that are going on Facebook, Twitter, our website. What that is so it's mainly has to do with the fact that if somebody wanted to do a records request on a communication that happened on Facebook between a couple of residents and a select board. I'm just making something up fictitiously here, but that's exactly what that would be. I would reach out to PageFreeze and say, hey, can you dig up this particular date and let me know what happened on our Facebook page around this time? And they would be able to pull that data up for me. So it's mainly for record retrieving.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Again, I know it's sort of silly. I mean, I guess I don't have any additional specific budget line item questions. I guess one question I'm just curious about to understand is what's the flow of information as your budget ends up being a catch-all for expenses coming out of other departments, right? Whether that's hardware, whether that's licensing, whether that's should I understand, maybe this is a specific question, like laser toner and computer supplies, is that other departments or is that strictly you?
It's other departments.
Okay,
So
that's what I thought.
yeah.
So I guess I'm just curious. I'm wondering what the mechanism is for those requests to come in. Like, how do we have a better understanding of what's driving those costs long term, and also like how does that fit into like strategic reductions for the town, right? So I think about like laser printing and paper costs, and these are relatively small line items, but personally, I'd like us to see us be greener and cut down on wasted stuff. I don't think you're the printer police, right? But I'm just curious what that communication looks like to you. And I also know, Jason, like I know you're stepping into the role as well, but just want to understand how some of these things that are requests that are coming from outside of your purview but fall into your budget, like how they go back and forth, how they get vetted, and just how we start to look at them from a more global perspective.
So personally, I would love to eliminate paper. Printer jams are the bane of my existence. So yeah, of course, I would love to eliminate paper as much as possible. We have a company that we work with, Image Tech and Xerox. Conical Minolta is another one, and that was kind of before my time that they added that in there. I would like to, my goal is to kind of eliminate as many vendors that we're working with and kind of consolidate to just one for, obviously for cost reasons, but also a lot of these devices are sending alerts to these companies to let them know about the different amounts of printing that's going on, first off. And if the device actually needs ink, we have some printers that are actually sending requests to the companies to say, hey, this device needs ink. I do have reports that I pulled from each one of these printers to show me some of that information. Again, have I had that time to really divulge into that reporting? Nope. I apologize. I wish I could more. And when I do have somebody on board, that is some of the things I am looking to do, is kind of really figure out who are the main hitters here on printing and why. And can't we just have this on the network or on OneDrive somewhere? Do we physically have to have a copy of it? So there's a lot of questions that I need to kind of dig into over the next couple of years and really figure out where our main hitters are. As of right now, I can tell you we have companies that I work with that maintain these printers whenever they go down and get reports about how much printing is going on. And it is a goal of mine to try to get a hold of tweaking that number even more in the future.
Cool. I appreciate that. Like I said, I'm just sort of curious how it's coming in new, especially stepping into a new, how the requests are coming in for like paper, ink, or how we look at that usage. Also, even computer and hardware replacement. So no further questions. I just wanted to get a better understanding of sort of how you're thinking of that. So thank you for everything, and thank you. Like I see the emails you're sending at all hours of the night and stepping on. I don't know how you keep it all straight, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Maybe just to
Okay.
add here, this was an example of where I think the MTC and Jason work quite well together, because we've spent a lot of time over the past year developing kind of the town's 5-year technology strategy. And there's a lot of things in that paper. And I think we'd like to share that with the new committee members who maybe haven't seen that yet. Things like driving stuff to the cloud, becoming a much more data-focused town. We've run a town survey where we've collected a lot of feedback from constituents in the town, and we're working closely with Jason where we have opportunities to do automation, moving away from paper. So that's a good example of also where I think the MTC and Jason's role kind of converge very well.
So Angela, I think the plan is on the your page on the town website.
Yes, it is.
So it's there for everybody to read. We're going to talk about the cloud in a second. I just want to get to the budget part first, and then we're going to go back and talk about Hipaa and talk about the cloud. So we definitely want to get into that before we let you go. It's so nice to have you guys here and be able to hear from you. Okay, so let's see who's next. So Tim, do you have any questions? Or you want me to skip you?
Sorry, I was on mute. At this point, no, not for the budget itself. I'll happily wait until everybody else has had their chance.
Okay, Marcy, budget questions?
Yeah, so hello, Jason. I only have one question tonight, and that's the internet connections line item 47. I'm just wondering, is that a contracted or negotiated rate, or is that fee for service depending on the number of connections you have?
It's not, it's from what I understand, I have to look a little bit deeper into whether it's a contract. I believe it's a month-to-month service currently with Verizon. And I'll have to dig in a little bit deeper on that. I haven't actually had an opportunity. I'm hoping, especially when I start to look in the new ISPs, what type of service we can get if it is a contracted service, especially with like deals for a contract.
Okay.
But yeah, I haven't had any. I'll say this: in my time, I haven't had to sign anything, especially becoming a new year. Since I've been here, sign anything new with Verizon for that service. So I'll dig in a little bit more, and I can email you about that separately if you'd like.
All right, great. Thank you. I watch a lot of the town meetings, and I've heard a few folks say that they think the internet service is not the best. So I don't know if you hear those complaints too, but I was just wondering if it was a contract and we're locked into it, or if it was negotiated, or there's an option to change. I'm sure you're looking at all those options, but that was the only question I had tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Aren't we almost all fiber at this point?
Yeah, the whole town is under the fiber connection, but again, that's different than what the internet, the ISP is providing us. Yes, we are all fiber interconnected between buildings, but it's the pipe that's going out to the outside world. That's pretty much the question she has there is what are we going out with?
And Jay, do you know what that is? Do we have like a T1 or a T3 or what are we doing?
It's 300 meg currently is what it is. Yeah.
Gonna leave that at that. Tim,
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
yeah, exactly.
Tim, are you laughing as well?
Why are you laughing at 300? Are you saying 300 megabits?
Because I have a gigabyte myself.
I have a gigabyte myself at home, so.
So Kathy, the
300
entire town is running on less internet bandwidth than I have myself.
Okay,
Yeah.
but 300 is not slow.
It's very
So-
slow for the amount of people.
Okay, so
Yeah.
MTC way in here is 300. It's not. I think 300 is fairly fast. I mean, it used to be where 50 was great, right? Then 100.
The bulk of the transfer would be caused by large file transfers, and it's very true. As we shift more towards cloud services, storage in the cloud, large files in the cloud, Zoom-enabled rooms, etc., that 300 megabits will quickly be eaten up. So I think right now it's probably perfectly fine, but over time it's definitely won't be sufficient. And keep in mind, over the past year, we have done this consolidation of onto a single network and onto a single line, whereas each building, different buildings have their own separate internet connection. And so, yeah, I think it makes more sense now that we've consolidated, now that we're pushing towards more file services on, like you speak of OneDrive, rather than storing things on a local drive. It's better for both HIPAA purposes and other reasons to store it on OneDrive. We definitely should consider doing some upgrades.
Interesting. Marcy, anything else? Okay, so we're not hearing you. It doesn't. Okay, try it again. So Marcy, we're still not hearing you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There you go. I don't have any other questions. That was very helpful. Thanks.
Okay. AP?
Hey Jay, couple things as I dig through here. One, this is probably more of a question for Brian, but I think we should look at some point in time of doing a budget system. I see we took it out of the budget, right? But I think advisory would be interested about talking about using something in the future that isn't just Excel. Whether it goes into this budget or next budget, but I see that money went away and got used for other things. So I think we like that money going towards things that we like. I'll just put that in
So
there.
Brian, what he's saying is we kind of miss clear.gov, the way it consolidated, and it was always up to date. And now we're back to making sure we've got the right budgets and stuff. So we probably ought to reinvestigate something for the future to make it a little bit more streamlinable.
I don't disagree. We'll that's on our radar.
But Kathy, the issue is we had the budget last year, right? Now we're not going to have the budget. So if we do something in the future, we're going to have to ask for additional budget that wasn't budgeted before.
You're correct. You're
Putting that out there. What else? Training. So Jay, I think it's, and this is probably more of a question for the selectmen, and I see a couple of them on. $2,000 of training per employee seems very high compared to our other departments. I know police and fire are hurting for training dollars. They want as much as they can. I think they probably get a quarter of that per employee. So I think it's just more from overseeing how we're evenly sharing training dollars. I think that the 4,000 seems a little high. I mean, your training might be more expensive, and that might be justified. I'm just, at first glance, I the entire fire department training budget is 9,000. So it's, and they have, I don't know how many people. So
I definitely compete with the people who save your lives. So
yeah. So it's just one thing that jumped out at me. That might be something that I look at. And I think in-state travel, always, we kind of hammered the same thing with youth and family services. Like, how much are you really traveling? Is this for seminars, or is this just, going around town and using mileage? What's your actual rate? If you're driving around town, we need to pay you for your mileage. If you're using $600 each, that makes sense, right? But just kind of tracking your actuals and really trying to hone in on that, because this year every dollar counts, but not huge money, but giving you the same message we gave other people on in-state travel.
Gotcha.
Workstations. So I know we're looking at replacing 21. Do you know how many workstations you support? Some are school, right? And that's not covered under your budget, but just the town ones, right?
Just the town ones. It's about roughly 120.
Okay.
Yep.
I know one thing we did try to do last year is push for any workstations that need to be replaced, any desktops, to do it under the CARES Act as much as possible. A lot of towns are using, switching from desktop to laptops and entirely expensing it. So I'm a little, that we're spending another 30,000. Hopefully we could have done that under CARES. I mean, we lost that window, but
unfortunately, especially when I came on board, I was really on the tail end of that. So I don't have much of an opportunity on my end, at least.
Hey, Andrew, what do you mean by he doesn't support the school?
No,
I know, that's what I was saying. Like, so if he doesn't support the school, how many is he doing?
Okay, all right. It sounded like you thought he supports schools. Okay, schools got their own department. Okay.
I was trying to get, how many laptops do we have to support, or what desktop? So, but yeah. What else? So for last year, we had set aside $50,000 for the programs and security, right? I know that was a big investment that this committee fought for to make sure that you guys were secure, especially Tim. And we reduced it to 25. Did we use all that 50? Are we doing more with the 25? I don't want to see the budget that we earmarked for our security concerns being absorbed into other things and our concerns not getting satisfied.
No, I mean, it was mostly focused on security, and that's exactly what this 25 is going to be focused on, is mainly security. And any application that can assist me on the way as well.
And you still think you're good, that'll cover enough? Yeah,
and from initial quotes that I have gotten in the past with especially with pen testing and applications that could assist me, it's about ballpark less, if anything, but it could definitely help me.
All right. And I think, what else did I have here? On the redundancy, do you know what you're thinking for that? Or I mean, my one concern always with redundancy is, people go, okay, I'll get FiOS and Spectrum. They're on the same pole, right? They're not out either side of the building. They don't have separate paths, right? You're pretty much, you're not really doing a true backhaul. Really. I have seen some municipalities actually contract with Starlink for satellite redundancy.
Yeah. So
obviously, you lose power, public safety still has internet because they have satellite.
Yeah.
So I would it's not terribly expensive. I think it's $400 a dish and $100 a month, but I think San Bernardino did it for a lot of their remote places as a backup. So just a thought. It's still new technology, but obviously, Matt and the MTC, I think that would be something perfectly to vet through them. But So I've always thought of it as a backup for places when they lose power or, internet goes down completely on the grid, you're still going to have something.
Yeah, definitely. And that's part of the planning with this as well. Especially with public safety.
Exactly.
I had recently been reached out by other companies that support what you're talking about, but also like mobile devices as well to put in place so that we have 24/7 connectivity out to the world. So
yep,
definitely going to be investing in that.
And then the only other one I had was for MTC's budget. They had the software for surveys, and I wasn't sure if that was something, Jay, that should be kind of moved under your umbrella, like our other, because I think, SurveyMonkey or other tools like that are used by other departments. I wasn't sure if that would be a good centralized software under you.
Yeah, and also we are, like, I believe we just purchased a license too recently for SurveyMonkey for something else entirely. But yeah, it should be something that can be under our budget as well. And it is obviously a software. So
yeah. I mean, I think it's a good software. It's just one of those should exist underneath Matt's budget or and MTC's budget or move under you. I'm kind of indifferent, but just something I noticed.
Yeah, MTC is flexible as well. As
Okay.
long as we can get access. We're actually sharing our SurveyMonkey license with Fire. So
Yeah, exactly.
it
So
makes sense.
it's one of those that kind of makes sense to centralize it, if you're sharing it.
Yeah.
And the other one, Jay, when we met with the library the other day, we talked a little bit about the hotspots, and we recommended they contact you and maybe even MTC should get involved to just make sure, is that what we want to do? Are we doing it right? Are we doing the right contract or whatever we want to do there? Maybe there's a benefit to the town for that. I don't know, something, but it was just one of those. Anytime I see silo-based technology purchases, I'm always going to bring it to your attention and see if it's something that would be better managed under you. I just feel that's the right strategy.
Yeah, no, I agree. If I think it's the item that Ryan was talking about with the hotspots, I believe he had some type of program that he was working with the state on getting these devices. And I had spoken to him about it, and it seemed like a good idea because of how what his ability was to get in them, which kind of seemed like it was very, very sponsored by the state in a sense.
It's completely funded by the state for 16 months, right? But that 16 months is ending at the end of September. So it's one of those, okay, so he put in his budget basically continuing and having to pay for the service, as a town.
Yeah.
And I just suggested talking to you and, facilities, that manages the phone bill to kind of see, do we roll that into our Verizon account and do Verizon hotspots? Do we stick with T-Mobile? Are there other vendors?
Or do we do them at all? I
Correct.
mean, we were very skeptical, Jay, about the library doing this. We didn't really understand why they felt that was within their role to provide that. So we really had a problem with that. And I think that the library was very receptive to possibly just removing it once the state money expires. So we just need someone to convince us we really need those hotspots. That's something that we really should provide.
Yeah, I'll definitely have that conversation with him and see what we come up with
Yeah, I agree with you, Kathy. I think there is a potential case for town employees who are going out of state and need internet access, in which case it makes a lot of sense, potentially. But yeah, as it is, it seemed a little odd.
Yeah. And I was thinking of Jay more of like emergency management, if they needed something and, to have or even if the library does use them, having it, any available, that we know the town employees know that they can get them there to use for any emergency services.
Yeah.
And to be perfectly frank, the only reason it got started is because the state was trying to spend some of the, I don't know if it's CARES Act money. And that's just one of the things they used it for. So we said, yeah, we'll take it. So it's not like we had some great need for it. It was just money thrown at us. So we said, fine. So we really do think it's not much money, but it was $2,100. So we definitely want someone to say, yeah, we really should be letting people check out hotspots. I never heard of such a thing until they told us. I didn't know you could do what you could do. So my guess is very few people know you can do this. So I think he said they had 30 checkouts since October, something like that. So I just think we should look at the whole thing as far as needing it, and then we can decide what budget goes in.
Yes, so we had a discussion last night about this with Ryan. He joined the MTC meeting, and the question came up, which Ryan's going to be working on, is identifying what is the use case. Who are the user personas that are actually checking these out? What are they using them for? How long are they using them? Are they using them for their temporary vacation needs? Are they using them to supplement or replace the lack of home internet, et cetera? I think until we understand how they're using them, why they have the need for them, I don't think we can address whether this is something that the library should be doing, or whether it be central IT doing it, or nobody in town doing it all, right? I fully support of like IT department should be doing something for employees. Like if you check out, just like you would check out a laptop, if an employee's going on vacation, can hand these out. But one of the things we brought up last night is very commonly in cell phone plans nowadays, most people with cell phones with the major carriers, you can turn your phone into a hotspot. So are we sort of trying to compete with that? And I think until we can get information from a survey of the users that have been using these checkouts from the library, I don't think we'd be able to identify whether this something makes sense or not.
Yep.
All right, TBD.
All right, that's all I got. Thanks, guys.
Okay, Adam?
Yeah, hi Jay. Thanks for joining us tonight. I think my fellow board members here have brought up all of the points that I was going to ask about, except for one, which you might have covered and maybe I just didn't understand it or missed it. But the change in salary for the second position being, about 10% lower in this year's budget versus previous. What was behind the reasoning for there, especially considering you're having a tough time finding a qualified applicant?
What was the salary? I'm sorry, say that again, the salary difference?
And why did it go from 95 to 84?
So that we went with the 84, and Brian, I'm not sure if Carl is in the audience there, but that was the midpoint of the grade that we had chosen. And we were kind of trying to keep it at a place where at least we could budget it. The number, hopefully doesn't go up much higher, but hopefully it stays a little bit lower than that. But that was kind of what we had budgeted for. The 96 in the beginning was just the number that they had kind of thrown in there in FY22 as a point, as a standing point, like almost like just a notch in there to see where it was. But then once we fine tuned it and figured it was, the grade 7 and what the budgeting number would be according to the midpoint, that's kind of what we came up with. Brian, do you have anything else to say to that?
No, I was just going to add, remember it started as an IT manager, I think, and then morphed into what you finally got through personnel board and what they graded. So basically it was a preliminary number. That's why.
So Brian, what's the grade?
I think it ended up as a 8. Was it 8?
It's a 7.
Grade 7.
7. Okay.
Okay, and this is what we added at the special town meeting, right? So what do we call what it's going to be called? IT manager? Is that the position in the SAP now?
No, it's senior IT specialist.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Adam, you want to continue to talk about that piece of it?
Well, I guess you sound like you need somebody. The job description, I'm sure is what you think you need, and the midpoint there is what's acceptable for it. I guess I just wonder, in the climate that we're in here, where it's hard to find somebody that you need, is that an area where a little bit more flexibility will help you land somebody sooner? But I don't know enough about kind of the applicant pool and how hard it is normally to find somebody, and if this is a bit of an aberration. But that's all. I was wondering if, I appreciate you trying to keep the budget down, but we don't want to see you, being a one-man show here for the entire year.
No, I agree. And again, if it comes to that, I'll have discussions internally and figure out if we need to move it around or do something different. But that was kind of where we sat with at this point.
So Jay, I would recommend that since the town meeting is more than 2 months away, that you set a time, if by, middle of March, you just don't have a bite of someone that's qualified, that we go to Plan B, because this number looks low to me. And I'm trying not to mix up, the for-profit world with the not-for-profit. They're two different worlds. There's, great benefits on the not-for-profit world you don't get on the other side, and salaries may be higher on the side that Angela and Matt work in, but it just looks low to me. So I'd say give it another, month and a half. And if you don't have a bite, we need to talk about this again and see if we need to do something else and make sure that, the budget going into the year reflects a new number if that's what should happen. So Matt has a comment on this. So let's go.
Yeah, a little more history. And this is a great question, Adam. Last year we did, in the absence of having IT manager, we worked in helping form the previous year's budget, and we put it in at 96 because the MTC feels like that is definitely a more appropriate number to target. And then and it got approved, but after town meeting, we went through the grading, the standard grading process with our personnel board, and we had to go through a couple rounds with them, and ultimately we were able to achieve a 7, because actually initially came out with the job description, it was lower than a 7. So it was somewhat of a success that was a 7, but fully agree that this is, agreed with Kathy here that is it's a low number, and fully agreed that I love the idea of putting a stake in the sand at a certain time before town meeting. If we don't get bites, let's take the opportunity to revisit and possibly increase. Yeah.
Then we may need to revisit my number as well.
Well, I don't disagree with that. If Jay's the one that said that, who said that? Okay.
I did.
I have said that before Jay has said that. I've said that in the past as well. So yeah.
So we get that. Now, what is the range for grade 7 for this position? What's the low and the high?
70 to 98.
70, 98. Okay. All right. So it could go up quite a bit. Okay. All right. Anything else, Adam?
No, nothing else for me.
Okay. So I don't have any budget questions. I am comforted by the fact that MTC has basically approved this with their background. Again, I've said this before, we're really lucky to have the quality of the people we do and the capability of the people we do on MTC. So if they think this is a budget that will do the job that Jay and hopefully a second person needs to do, then I am not going to question the budget specifically. So I want to turn to 3 things though at this point, if everybody's ready. Let's talk about moving to the cloud that we started talking about last year. Let's talk about Hipaa. And then let's talk about possibly, to me, where you could really save some money in this budget is if we took a look at consolidating the IT needs with the school system, which we started talking about last year too. So I'd like to just kind of open it up and talk about those 3 things tonight before we move on. So Jay, you want to start with, where we are as far as plans to move what we can to the cloud and kind of what your timetable is?
Kathy, real quick though, before we get on that, I would just caution that, the budget overall is increasing 5%, even though the salaries are going down, even for the normalization of the technology budget. So it will most likely be held at town meeting, and it will require a significant explanation on why that increase is there. So I would just, to any point you can whittle that down, a 5% increase when your salaries are decreasing, right? So it's really, I don't know, the rest of the stuff is 7, 8, 9%. People in town are going to pull that one out.
Well, one person will. There's always one person that holds all the budgets. They just go through and look at them and look at the ones that are more than average and say, oh, doesn't mean it won't pass, but it might require further explanation. So that's a true statement.
I would be careful about what we print in the warrant, right? We don't want to print a whole bunch of 100% increase line items.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to discuss the plans for moving what can be moved to the cloud.
So a lot of that plan really lays upon the redundancy for the ISP. So that is the reason why I added it to this budget. And also with networking equipment, getting another firewall in place over at DPW to be kind of our second location for an ISP. Because at the end of the day, not one thing would necessarily be a good idea to just migrate entirely to the cloud currently, because if we did lose our ISP provider tomorrow, and knock on some wood, we would be down. So that's one thing I don't want to put our town at, the town of Southport at risk at. So the line items in here are part of getting to that point. It is going to be a step process. So once I get these things in place, then I can start talking about getting, what services I can start moving to the cloud, as far as servers themselves physically, or services in general, like Azure for Active Directory. I have been trying and still am trying to work with the police department and fire department with the different applications that they use internally, and having conversations with them as far as what their services are, and if at any point what they currently use will be something that will just be in the cloud. They're very, early stages as far as the conversations go, but it is something that I am looking to as well. If I was to throw out numbers, I would say at least the next 3 years is when I would start seeing things already going in the direction of the cloud. And I only say that because this year it's going to take some time to get these other things in place, and then maybe next year start moving some items to the cloud. The goal is to get there, and it would make my job a little bit easier to have different pieces like this in place, so that I don't have to worry so much about ISPs going down or servers going down, where I can reach out to someone and say, hey, spin this back up, or if one goes down, one service provider goes down, another one will be sitting there to take up the load.
So if I had to guess, Jay, I would think that most of the people on this Zoom that are on MTC and advisory, with maybe the exception of Marcy because of her employers, work for companies that are at least partially, maybe totally on the cloud. So we're all fairly familiar with how the cloud works and how it works day to day. My company is much smaller than most everybody's here, and we're totally on the cloud. And I know that we do not have a redundant ISP. It's totally Verizon. So I'm going to ask MTC, is it normal to always want to make sure you have a redundant ISP if you're going to use the cloud for the vast majority of where your data is?
That's a question for the MTC?
Yes.
The answer is depends on how critical your processes are that are sitting in the cloud. So if it's a business critical process that will shut you down, and it's a large group of people that will be shut down at the same time, then it does make more sense to consider having a redundant network connection before you shift to the cloud. This is not a question about cloud redundancy. I think there's no dispute that the services themselves are much more redundant themselves in the cloud. I mean, they have redundant connections, they have redundant data stores, they have backups, etc. This is all just about accessibility to the cloud, or from the client getting to the cloud itself. And nowadays with remote work, everybody has their own internet connections, and maybe you'll have a branch fall on a line, and your own internet connection can't get there, but the rest of the employees can. And now that we have, of course, hotspots, or people using their phones for hotspots, that can serve as a redundant connection. I think there's two different issues here. One is police and fire. We know police and fire services, those for right now can't move the cloud. They have to be in the same building, etc. For all the other services, I don't think we should gate necessarily all the other services on moving the cloud. And I think Jason's doing a good job in partnering with with looking at each service one by one and slowly moving us towards that, including things like OneDrive, including things like a lot of these other cloud services you see on this list. But I don't think it's a strong mandatory requirement that we have redundant. But it will come soon. Jason and I have discussed this, that we're going to be working together very shortly to put in redundant connections, but I don't think it's a strong requirement.
And
Long
also,
answer to
when we
your question.
reviewed this before, Jason, correct me on the percentages, but most of the software that we have is SaaS-based software. So it's already sitting in the cloud. It's monitored by the company that's providing it. It's being operated by that company. So we're not sitting on a huge data center where we've built up a ton of internal servers, and now we have to do a migration over to the cloud. There's only certain systems that are still on premise.
Correct. And a lot of that has to do mainly with public safety and keeping them going.
Okay, so Jay, it sounds like you think you've got the money in the budget for fiscal year 23 to take whatever steps you're planning on taking as far as moving what you intend to move to the cloud.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, you know this from previous conversations. Advisory is definitely very much on board with moving to the cloud. Okay, next one, which is kind of related. The servers that were pushed through in the special town meeting budget, where does that stand? Are they bought? Are they close? Are they here? Are they not here?
No, they are physically not here. But I've had conversations with HP. I'm actually finishing up conversations this week with Dell. And once I get that all pulled together, I'm going to also just send some of that data over to MTC so they can take a look at it as well. And then I'm going to make a decision over the next week or two to get those things purchased. So it's the process has been going, and it's just been kind of steady and slow. It's just switching focus between internal work and talking to vendors and meetings and internal work and then back to vendors. So
Jay, we know this, so we understand how stressed you are. I just want to know where it stood and whether you think you still have enough money with what got approved to buy what you are trying to buy.
Yeah, and that's what I'm actually, that was the last conversation I had with Dell too, was telling them, hey, this is what I have to work with. Well, let's make it work. And that's kind of what the next meeting is, to kind of fine tune some of those numbers as well with Dell and see what they come back with. And then I'll have the two options that I have available and go from there. But yes, the process is still moving forward.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, let's go back, Tim, let's go back to the discussion we had when we met with Youth and Family Services. So, Tim, I want you to lead most of this, but long story short, they have existed with paper files for years and years and years, literally, file cabinets with files in it. They obviously have very sensitive files because of what they do. They have to be very careful and make sure that they are compliant with Hipaa because they've got some very sensitive health information in those files. So they have been trying to move to an electronic system, which is what raised some questions for us as far as whether that software itself was HIPAA compliant. So Claire helped us a little bit trying to understand what was done to implement the system, but we were asking Sarah questions that really were outside her bailiwick as far as answering. So we didn't want to put her too much on the spot. So we thought we're going to wait till we meet with IT and see what you can help us with as far as making us comfortable that this software she's using. And I can't remember what it's called. Can someone else off the top of their head?
Therapy Notes.
Therapy Notes, yeah, Therapy Notes. Do we believe it's HIPAA compliant? Is there anything we need to worry about as far as what they're doing to try to get most of the records put on electronic?
I'm not sure if Tim wants to just take over on it, but I can speak to it.
If you want, I can talk to it, Jason.
Yeah, that's fine.
So we did talk about this briefly. The software itself, it's a software as a service. It does seem to be it does seem to have the right audit and SOC requirements behind it. It seems to be. I don't think anybody has actually asked them to deliver these documents to prove that they've gone through the right steps, but they advertise that they have. So that's something. The fact that this software in and of itself is compliant is a good first step. It's not the only thing to worry about. Anybody who uses this system can always download information. They can email it to themselves. They can be utilizing equipment at home, which I'm certain Jason will agree with me, is not secure and probably has a host of vulnerabilities on it. Files can be emailed out accidentally. There are a lot of concerns around the software itself. Just the fact that this information has now been digitized raises the stakes as opposed to when they were just using paper. And there are a lot of things to address. There are a lot of rules that we don't know because we don't have a compliance officer. There's nobody to tell us that we're operating safely or not operating safely. So that's really, I don't want the conversation to focus just on the software itself, because that's probably the one area where we are probably in good shape.
So Jay, we were hoping that maybe the second person might have some, compliance background in his background, and maybe wishful thinking to maybe take a look at this. It's not just using family services, it's, the Board of Health, our health department, and probably police and fire too. So there's, several departments that have sensitive HIPAA governed information that we want to make sure that we're following the rules so that we don't get into trouble.
Right. So for example, there are training requirements every year. Do we have a training program? Do we have access to the training software? Have we purchased access? Do we follow up with our employees who have access to this data to ensure that they've taken the right courses? The answer to all that, I promise you, is no. And that right there pretty much obviates any defense we might have if there's a breach. Right. So it wasn't a problem a year ago. It's become a big problem right now because of the digitization of this really private data, and that's specifically around minors, which makes it even worse.
Matt?
Yeah, this is something that we discussed, I think, briefly in the MTC meeting. The MTC would be happy to help with this, including going through an assessment. I discussed with Jason starting an assessment based on NIST framework previously, but I'd be happy to do so starting with a high trust HIPAA framework. Professionally, I did this actually last fall, leading a team that did a high trust assessment against very significant cloud service. And so I'm actually quite familiar with the 400 plus controls as required by high trust. So I'd be happy to work through those. And in general, where possible, you try to avoid the applicability of the control by having some other entity do it. So I think we're moving in the right direction by having a cloud service handle like all the physical controls. There's a whole section in high trust for physical access to the storage, the hard drives, physical destruction of hard drives, etc. And that's one of the beautiful things about going to cloud services, that those whole sections of controls are handled by a service provider. So I'll just say MTC would be happy to help there, and completely agreed with Tim's concern that digitization creates risk, and we need to make sure we properly cover that risk through proper set of controls.
Anything else to add, Jay, to that?
No, not. That's exactly where we're at. I mean, it's anything that we do in IT, it's a risk. So, and Tim is right. I'm not a compliance officer, and nor can I say that I can lie about it either. So there's a lot of risk in everything that we do every single day. just opening up our laptop is a risk. So the good news is we are, as Matt indicated, we are moving in the right direction, and Tim said as well. You know, having a service take care and take that risk on their end is the reason why, you know, we look to software as a service and cloud services to take the brunt and the hit in the background. So I mean, besides that, it's all justified. You know, everything that you guys are talking about, it makes sense, and this is why my life is a paranoid world every single day. So I try my best to make sure we're safe. But there's only so much we can do at the end of the day.
One more thing to add. So anytime you're going through a high trust audit, they're looking for three things. They're looking to make sure you have a policy. They're looking to make sure you have a process that matches that policy. And then they're looking to make sure that you actually have effective execution of that process. And all three have to be documented. You have to have evidence to show that you have a policy, evidence to show that you have a process, or what we call a procedure, that matches the policy. And then you also have to have evidence to show that you have effective control operation. So we'll definitely need to create additional documentation here. And it's definitely something, like I say, we're happy to help and walk through within the scope of the Senior Center and Youth and Family Services.
Anything else about HIPAA before we move on? Okay, so the next one, I don't want to spend much time on unless somebody.
Actually, Kathy, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Tim.
I just want to throw it out there, even if it's really unpopular. You know, in the long run, I think this is absolutely the way to go. In the short term, you know, the easiest solution is just to go back to paper until we're ready. So really, that's a decision for the town to make in terms of risk and what the right time, you know, how much risk we can bear and we want to bear until we're able to move forward in the right way. So I just wanted to point that out. Like we're not stuck with digitized data, right? This was done by a specific department or departments because they wanted to be more efficient, but we can always step back from that temporarily if the risk is decided that the cost of mitigating that risk in the short term is too much. So I just wanted to mention that. That's
a good point. Question to you, Tim. When we were on paper, or most recently on paper, were they hand filled out forms? So were all the entries or the values in those forms, like names, so forth, it's all just filled out by hand, and they were never even typed into a computer and then just printed out or something like that. Is that correct?
I think that's my understanding. It was all completely hand filled in and put in a folder in a locked filing cabinet.
Okay. That certainly is a simple way of mitigating risk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of files. The problem is they're having trouble finding stuff because it takes so long to go through them. So that's what they're trying to mitigate. Okay, so let's move on quickly. We've talked in the past about, you know, the town budget is a town budget. You know, it's hard to find ways to really make meaningful cuts in this budget. So every year, you know, we struggle to come up with a budget that we can live with and has a reasonable year-over-year tax increase. But there's a couple things that, you know, we've talked about in the last couple of years that we think should be looked at. And one of those is consolidation of departments to possibly get rid of some of the overhead. And one of those thoughts was going back to what we had years ago, which is have, you know, one technology department that basically deals with the entire town, including the schools. So actually consolidate it and possibly reduce the total cost between the school budget, which is part of the town budget, and then the town side. So I don't think, we don't have much time tonight to really talk about that, but we should bring that up again. And maybe, you know, get together with MTC and talk about that too, as far as the pros and cons of doing that. The superintendent is well aware of this and he is open-minded. So I just think we need to take it to the next step and talk about what it might mean and what the benefits including cost savings might be. So I'm just kind of throwing that out so we don't forget that one. If someone wants to say anything else, feel free to do it, but we don't have a whole lot of time left tonight.
I'd like to add note to that MTC is in violent agreement that we should look at cost savings and opportunities for what we call synergies between the school system and the town. We've discussed in multiple meetings, possibly leveraging, common internet connections, whereas right now, the last I heard, each and every school has their own internet connection, and it's on a individual or a private person class internet connection. So entire schools sharing 100 megabits or something like that. And now we have town fiber, municipal fiber that goes right in front of Woodward and fairly close to other schools, Finn, et cetera, that we could just branch off of. So I think there's lots of opportunities for improvement and synergies. We would love to have engagement from the school committee and the schools. And this is actually a deficiency that I need to bring up again with the school committee, but we need to have, in the town bylaw, we should have a representative from the school committee to join the MTC as ex officio as well and discuss these very issues. But we haven't had that for at least a year and a half. So I think engagement is first, and then let's talk about synergies and whether it be how we can help each other, how can we take 1 + 1 and make 3 = 3. I think there's lots of opportunities, but we haven't had the opportunity even to discuss this with them because we haven't had representation from the schools.
And they're Google Docs driven too, Matt. So they're on an entirely different system as far as that kind of stuff too goes. So you would think there'd be some synergies there too. Okay, so we know that that's still something to be discussed in the future. Okay, anything else anybody wants to talk about before we say goodnight to Jay and to MTC? Okay. All right, so Brian and Mark, you stay with us, right? We're going to start talking about your budgets. So thank you guys for coming. This was very informative, as it always is. Jay, thank you for staying late. I'm sure you've had another long day. And let's keep talking, especially about that second person as far as whether that salary is going to do the trick for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, Angela.
Bye.
Good night.
Thanks.
Okay. I think Carla is in the audience. I think I saw her. So can you bring over Carla McAuliffe, Eric? And Paul, excuse me, there's Paul Sabelli too. So everybody but Sam.
In process.
Okay.
Kathy, I think if you stop sharing your screen, we'll see them.
Yep.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
All right. So do I need to stop sharing, Eric?
Yeah, I believe you're sharing your screen.
Okay, so I'm trying to stop. It's not letting me do it. Okay. Oh, there we go. I got it. Okay, here we go. I hadn't done that in a while. I've gotten rusty. Okay, so there's Carla, and there is Paul, and there is Brian, there is Mark. There they are. Okay, so the two new, so here's Brian Ballantyne. Brian, we tried to bring you over earlier, and you were MIA, so here you are. So just to make sure everybody knew, so we've got Eric Fernandez is new to advisory. You've got Adam Notif, who's new, and you've got Marcy Jones, who's new. The fourth member is Tom Wilson, who's not here tonight, John Wilson's son. So he's our fourth new advisory member. So everybody in advisory, you've got Paul Sabelli at the bottom with the red cap on, who is our longtime assessor. How long, Paul? 20 years?
22 years.
Long time. And you've got Carla McAuliffe, who is was our old town accountant, now we're a new town accountant. So she was town accountant, then she left for a while and she came back when Heidi Krieger retired last year. So she's been on board since 7/1/21, Carla, or 20? 20.
Yeah, year and a half. Yep.
By the middle of COVID. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, but very experienced. And then Brian Ballantyne's been our treasurer for as long as I can remember. So how long, Brian?
19.
19. Okay, so you're competing. And then Mark, you've been here since what year?
2012.
All right, so very experienced group. Okay, so let's just run through your budgets real quick, and then let's focus on Mr. Sabelli. So Andrew and I had a meeting yesterday with Paul just to try to save some time. So I think that that part will go fairly quickly. Because as everybody knows, we're concerned about the values of the town as a 1/122 as far as the split between residential and then commercial, industrial, and personal property. So that is, and Mr. Sabelli's bailiwick. Okay, so does anyone have their budgets handy? If not, I'll bring them up. Eric, do you have them?
I do not have all of them handy.
All right, I've got them. I've got them right here. Okay, let's start with Carla first. I'll go.
Okay, you want to start with audit or the accountant budget first, Kathy?
Let's do accountant's budget first. So can I share my screen again?
You should still be able to, Kathy.
All right.
I'm not letting you.
Okay. Okay, so can everybody see 135? Okay,
Yep.
all right. So it's pretty simple budget. Okay, so go ahead, Carla. It's all yours.
Okay, so basically our budget is just going up basically, you know, the salaries. We did increase the, if you go to the first tab. Oh, you want to talk about the salaries. The salaries is just myself and my full-time assistant.
Your budget really is all salaries, so that's why I went ahead and flipped it.
Yeah, it's mostly salaries, and it's just, you know, my assistant has longevity. I just increased one line, which was training, for like, I think it was like $85 or something, and that was that 12%. So, you know, not much to it. I don't know if you read my advisory narrative, but we're 2 40-hour employees with minimal extra, little training, little supplies. That's about it.
Okay, so here we are. So that's basically the budget. Is this right here?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, and then have you done the 3%? Have you changed it from the 2.8 to the 3%? Did you get that done?
You know,
So Carla, your
it's
contract.
3% in
Never
there.
mind, your contract. Okay, so Heidi should have been 3%, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not contract. I'm on the SAP. Heidi was a contract. I don't have a contract.
Yeah, because it says contract here. So
Oh, sorry, I'm not. No.
okay, so because you know originally it said use 2.8, but then they voted in as 3%. So have you changed it?
Yeah,
from
the 3%'s in there. Yep.
So you're done. This is a done deal, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions for Carla as far as her budget of 2 people? Marcy. So let me just let me do this quick. Marcy.
I don't have any questions for Carla. Thank you.
Okay, Tim.
Thank you.
AP.
No questions. Thank you.
The only question that I have that I ask everybody, Carla, is in-state travel, right? I mean, I see 0 for 21, 0 for 20. Like, is your actual for 22? Are you going to use the full 1,000 and then?
Yes, I have a conference in March. It's the you know, accounting education that they do yearly, and I'm a presenter at that. I teach a class there, and right now they're saying that's going to be in person. If it's in person, I'll use it. If it's not, I won't.
Okay.
Adam.
Only that the salary 2.8% is reflected here. If you do the math, that is a 2.8% increase. So just wanted to make sure that does get
that's why I was asking. But
well, if in that, if you go to the next sheet, I do believe it is the 3% in there. You see the rate in column G. I think it's up 2% because of the longevity. Yeah, go to G7.
yeah, that's 3. So that one's 3, and that one's 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was it. No other questions.
But I still don't know why it's 2.8 instead of 3. So we'll figure that later. It should.
Yeah,
be
something's not tying maybe.
Yeah, I know.
All right, I'll take another look at it. Yeah, looking tight out everybody else's, so.
So F, yeah, that's right. You gotta lead the charge here. Yeah. So I don't know what's wrong, unless this is wrong. It could be that, but it should be 3. Okay.
I'll
All
take
right,
another look, Kathy. If it's revised, I'll send it to you.
Okay. Eric, any questions for Carla?
Nope, thank you.
Okay, I don't have any questions. Okay, so let's do audit now, Carla.
Okay, the audit budget, it's always been in a separate budget per Mass General Law. And basically for next year, for 2023, the only thing we're looking for is $27,000 to fund the regular audit for the town. The GASB, which is the second line, is every other year. So we will be looking for that for 24. We had it in this year. We don't need it for 23. We also, because of the federal money that we have received, we're looking at a single audit for Southborough, which we've never had before. Or the first time is this year, and we funded that audit with CARES money. And going forward, it's fair to say ARPA is going to kick us over the threshold even more so. So we're just going to ask the selectmen to reserve $5,000 for ARPA to cover that single audit.
Say that again, Carla. What is it? I don't understand. I don't know what you just said.
So there's a threshold that if you receive federal funds and that kicks you into a single audit mode. We've never had a single audit here in Southborough. This is the first year we've had to because of the FEMA and CARES money that we've received. And going forward, we're going to be subject to it due to the ARPA. The ARPA is over 3 million, so we are going to have a single audit.
The single audit by the state? The state comes in and looks at it?
No, it's our auditor that does it, but it's a separate auditing. It's got a whole separate set of work papers and rules and OMB compliance supplement that they have to do a deeper dive into our federal grants. So that's not something that we've had in the past at all in Southborough. But due to the grant money that we have received from the federal government, we're subject to that.
Okay, if we know it's 5, why don't we just make the budget 32?
No, the 27 is, well, we know ARPA can cover that. That's what we're going to have the selectmen cover it through the ARPA grant.
Okay, so the $3 million, we're going to use 5,000 of that to cover the additional procedures that our auditor is going to have to do to comply?
Yes, yeah, that's something that we can use the ARPA money for. So
well,
like
we can use ARPA money for a lot of stuff, right? Since we're using ARPA money based on our loss of revenue, we've got lots of choices, right?
Yep.
And so what if the ARPA committee comes in and says, we don't want you to use that $5,000 for that?
Well, you know what, I had it in there, Kathy, but I figured that the selectmen would use that funds. We can certainly add it back in.
Well, let's just make note that if we may need to we should put that 5 back in. Okay, so why did the 42 go down to 27?
The 42 was because we had our auditor retire, our longtime auditor retire, and we really did not know what we were going to be looking for a figure, and it came in at 27. So we were fortunate in that regard. So there will be money from that budget coming back into free cash this year.
I still, I'm a tax person. I'm not an auditor, but I've, worked with, Ernst & Young for 15 years. And so I know what audits cost. I'm amazed that they will do an audit for $27,000 in this day and age. But good for us if it is, as long as they do a thorough audit. I just think that is so low.
We went through the bid process, the RFP, and received bids and had interviews, and we ended up with Roselli and Clark and Associates. So,
well, I'm glad we've got a firm and not one person, so that's certainly an improvement.
Yeah.
So that's fine. If they can do it, maybe when you specialize so much in, town audits. You know what to do and you can get it done. So, okay. All right. Anybody have any questions on the projected audit costs for fiscal year 23, the budget? Okay, so you're done, Carla.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's do, Brian, let's do yours next. Let's do treasurer. Okay, there you are.
I still see Carla.
Well, everybody doesn't see 145 treasurer collector?
No.
No, just
Kathy-
unshare and then reshare usually fixes it.
Yeah.
All
Kathy,
right.
I think what you're doing is I think you may be just sharing the specific file versus like sharing your entire screen. So then when you move things around, you have to unshare and reshare.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's,
All right, so maybe now. How about now?
Yep,
Got it.
All right. Okay, Brian, it's all yours.
this is gonna be similar to Carla's. I mean, most of it's salary. So I have 2 employees, they're the same employees, and myself. And it's funny, Carla had contract and SAP, and I'm actually contract, and mine says all SAP, so.
There you go.
We're a little backwards, but that's okay. Yeah, so those are standard increases. I think mine, the 2 SAPs were 3%, and mine was an odd one this year, was 2, I think it might have been 2.5. So it was a little lower than 3. So that's the salaries.
Okay, well, not to
But
check over
2.7
here, L, it still says 2.8. So it looks like,
I know, it says 2.8, but I fixed it. Mine's 2.75. That didn't change.
okay, so you'll fix these 2 if they need fixing, or at least,
Yeah, I'll change that. I know I did the rates, so
Okay.
even though you don't see the formula.
all right.
We'll check them both tomorrow morning though. So that's the salaries. In the non-salaries, pretty much everything's the same except the bugaboo of training, which seems to be everyone's little bugaboo. So I now have Katie Barry working part-time in my office, and we split with the selectmen her weekly hours, which was something we started this year. So I actually put a little money in there for her to perhaps get some formal training on some of the stuff we do in my office. I have no idea if it'll be another $400 or not, but I just took a stab at it. The 1,100 for this year and the 350 for the in-state travel, I actually will use because or actually I have used it already, most of it, because the meetings were actually coming back in person for a while during the summer, and our major annual meeting is in the summer. It's in August. So we already had our major meeting. We have a second, a little lesser major meeting in June. I don't know. They're planning to meet in person for that one too. Who knows? But obviously they canceled all the little, we have a bunch of little ones in November, October, April, stuff like that. They've all Zoomed. So, but I do anticipate most of that will be used this year. So that's good. Everything else is pretty much level funded. Yeah, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Level service, level funded. Okay, so now 2 years ago, you wanted a full-time person, and then you reduced that to a part-time person, and we had all the discussion about how to share admins, et cetera, right? Youth and Family Services got their full-time admin, and no one else did. Carol retired that position. Then, so can you? I mean, if you want Mark to do it, that's fine. But can you kind of update us on what has been done to get you what you need? So obviously you're using Katie. She's not in this budget. She's in the Board of Selectmen budget. So are you okay as far as the hours you're getting to do what you thought you needed more for? And we didn't disagree that you did. We thought you needed more time too. Are you there? Are you still not there?
It's fairly close to being there. We only have a few times during the year that the duties in the selectman's office and the duties in my office kind of conflict. But we've been really good at working around any kind of conflicts. Katie's a great, just, you know, it helps having a good worker, and she is a good worker. She's got a really good attitude. And, you know, she's a little bit of a jack of all trades, which is kind of nice to have. She does help a little bit, and Mark can correct me if I'm wrong, but she does help Jay a little bit with administrative things such as bills, conservation. I think she still helps with them a little bit too, here and there. So she kind of goes a little where she's needed, and tries to assist a few other departments, but she's done a great job for us. I can say that. So, you know, I just want to get her a little bit more training, hopefully next year, because she doesn't, you know, this is all new to her. She doesn't know. She's kind of, everything she's learned so far has just been on the fly. So that was my goal. But yeah,
So
she's
she
worked out well.
supports you, she supports BOS, she supports some conservation and some IT, that's the four, but not Paul?
Not Paul.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that's a lot to support. Is it okay because you don't have as much walk-in business as you were having pre-COVID, where, you know, you were having to jump up and down and actually be at the counter, like, because I know that was one of your issues, is that you just had to keep jumping up and down to.
Yeah, it's and again, that actually started to come back a little bit, and now it seems to have waned again, which is it's very interesting how that's gone. So yeah, I think we just got to watch it again and see if last year happens where, you know, things ease up in the spring and then they start to almost feel normal again. So, but it has gotten much better with Katie has intercepted now. She takes a lot of the phone calls and the walk-ins that do come in. She gets them first. So she's alleviated a lot of that. So it's exactly what we wanted, you know.
Okay, good for you guys for having her. Okay, so I'm going to start the top again as far as any questions on Brian's budget, which again is basically 3 salaries. Marcy?
No, I don't have any questions. I'm sure that Andrew will ask the one about the training. That would be the only one I have. So,
Well, that's why Brian brought it up. He knew he was going to ask.
so I think we're all set.
Cut him
So.
off. He's trying to cut him off.
And in-state travel.
Yeah.
In-state travel. That's what I meant. I'm sorry. In-state travel. So thank you.
Okay. All right, Tim.
No questions. Thank you.
All right. Eric,
None, thank you.
Adam.
No questions.
Okay, AP.
You answered the in-state travel one, and again, employee training is just something to look at across all the departments and make sure it's equitable.
All right. Okay. Good job, Brian. You're off the hook, other than fixing your salary line,
Yeah.
right? And making yourself a contract employee and not an SAP. Okay. All right. Let's see. I want to do assessors last, so let's do BOS next. Okay. So now you're saying I need to stop sharing before I bring this one over. Is that what I need to do here? Can you guys see this one?
So yeah, if you just when you went to share, if you selected the individual program versus your entire desktop or screen, then yeah, you're gonna need to unshare and reshare.
All right. Okay, so this budget is directly under the control of the board. So this is where Mr. Purple's salary is. So this is basically a lot of the townhouse. There's other budgets that are townhouse too, but this is pretty much the townhouse budget here as far as I want to look at this one. All right, Mark. So thank you for hanging in there with us tonight. So anything you want us to know about this one?
Sure. Start with the personnel. I think that, we do have the 4 employees. We have had some turnover this year. Lori Esposito has moved upstairs and is now benefiting the assessors department. Her replacement, Melanie Otska, has come to us. The salary is a little bit less, therefore you're not seeing as big of an increase in the salary line. There is some additional money in the employee training in order to get her some of the procurement training and some of the other pieces that we do need. But she's been a great addition. And just to pile on with what Brian had said about Katie Berry, she's integrated into the position very well. excuse me, to the shared between the two departments. I actually would probably go so far as to think, I think she's integrated better into treasurer's office right now than she has in a selectman, simply because I'm trying to figure out who's doing what, with the new employee, and trying to, figure out where the skill sets and the tasks, fit best. But it's the staff has actually come together nicely, and along with Vanessa, I think it's been good. So you're seeing a slight reduction in the personnel costs, and a lot of the things that you see there in terms of longevity, deferred comp, vacation buyout, are contractual items for my contract. Under the expenses, there is one change I do want to point out. When you look at employee training, 53070, that $11,000 number, there had been a conversation back and forth, in terms of where the training for employees, whether it's sexual harassment, DEI, things of that nature, whether it goes beyond our office, should reside with personnel board, or it should reside in the Board of Selectmen's budget. Vanessa's been the one to help facilitate that training, whether it be in conjunction with personnel board or whether it be done from our office. And some of the conversations I've been having with Selectman Malinowski, I think that line is going to be reduced by about $7,000, and that is going to shift back over into personnel board. So I think the result, instead of a bottom line 2.0% increase, it's going to be about a 0.4% increase. So you're basically going to, see our expenses basically changing by about $1,000. Again, in terms of in-state travel, it does assume we're back to normal meeting schedules, monthly manager meetings. There are some procurement trainings that, if they stay online, we're not going to need some of those things. But if we're traveling into Boston for multi-day meetings, for procurement for Melanie, that becomes an issue. Ms. Hale has her personnel association meetings, things of that nature. So again, that assumes we're getting back into a full service meetings, but I've had one in-person meeting in the last 16 months. Everything else has been virtual. So this is assuming we get back to some sense of normalcy.
So Mark, just to be clear, the 7680 for the DEI training was in personnel last year and it's being, or was it there at all?
So personnel board, employee training kind of fluctuates based on need. But there are some things that we should be doing, every so often, so many years that we haven't been doing. So I think that number does fluctuate over there. So I think there's some things that we need to catch up on. Our insurance company, Maya, does have a library, and does provide, people who will come out for free trainings depending on certain topics. We try to take advantage of those and try not to spend the money if we can help it. There are things that we've tried to join with other communities and try and do cross training. But with COVID, that's been, you really don't want to, you have hard enough time putting all of your people into one room rather than bringing in other people from another community, into the same space.
Okay, and then let's go, before we start, turn this over to individuals. Line 23, the 53888 miscellaneous contract services. That is a byproduct of what the select board have decided to do for minutes takers. Yes. For next year, right? Okay, so does that mean then we should expect, oh, that can't be, okay, so this is just this Board of Selectmen's minutes, or is this? I thought it was all going to be rolled into one account.
Yeah, this is just Board of Selectmen's minutes. I mean, if you've watched our meetings, we have between, I think we average probably 4-hour meetings.
Yeah.
We've had more than one 6-hour meeting, the past 3-4 months. So if we continue to this trend, and again, the board's been busy and the board likes to talk about things. So the meetings, tend to go a little bit long, and minutes are going to be expensive.
We get that. So we understand. So why was it $1,000 last year?
because we actually had an employee doing them. Katie Berry was doing our minutes.
Yeah.
So the money, was being carried up under salaries part-time. That was for 21. I'm not sure why it's reflecting 0 for 22.
Okay, so
Because
last year,
so the minute taker is now a contracted service, but previously it was an employee. But I'm not sure why there's nothing showing for 22. That's going to be on my to-do list to fix that tomorrow.
okay, so she's not going to be the minute taker for fiscal year 23.
Katie is not doing anymore. We have a lovely woman, Bridget Rubin, who is doing the minutes for us now. It's a contracted service.
All right, so she's 1099. Okay, so that makes sense. Okay, so let's just see what individuals. So Adam, I'll start with you. Any questions for Mark as far as the BOS budget?
Honestly, I'm still absorbing it. So no questions at the moment.
Mhm. So, it's mostly salaries. It's got a little bit more in than the others did, but it's basically 4 people, and then a little bit of other stuff. Okay, so Tim?
No questions. Thank you.
So I'm saving Andrew Pfaff's question for the last, because I know what that one is. Eric?
It's gonna seem super minor, but given where we are for the town, just wondering, road 25, 26, other office supplies, food, employee recognition. Is that just a standard sort of, hey, we want a 20% increase? Is there something driving that increase? I mean, it's not out of line compared to historicals, but just curious.
So we have, I think other office supplies is just, the cost of things, things are costing more, with the issues that are going on now. The food line, the board has tried to do, a couple of different events for volunteers, volunteer recognition breakfasts. We always, the people that, not a lot of people come, but the people that do speak very highly of them and like the interaction with other people from other boards and, things like that. So the board has been trying to do, some more of those things, and that usually will take care of, 2 to maybe 3 of those type events a year to recognize volunteers for the things that they do, on a yearly basis.
Cool. No, I appreciate it. Last comment here, I mean, this might just be an at-large, or this might be me being so new, but I keep noticing the postage line item across some of these different budgets we're reviewing. And again, this is just me. I have no idea what we're posting and the cost, but it consistently pops up as a big one. And I don't know if our rates are consolidated. So even if it's split across different budgets, that we're at least saving some money with consolidated and bulk, but it just keeps sticking out to me that it's like a huge line item on some of these different. It was huge on DPW, it was huge on some others. So I don't know. I'm not sure if I have a question there, but it's just a comment that keeps sticking out to me.
Yeah. Well, I will say, so that is a consolidated number, for a lot of the townhouse, the general services. I mean, if departments are doing big mailings, big projects, things like that, they need to be accounted for in their budget. A lot of that line item, probably 80% of that line item, belongs to Mr. Ballantyne, and in terms of tax bills, he really tries to hone that number down as much as he can. We mail very little out of the selectman's office in terms of licensing and notifications and things like that. We do as much electronic as we can. So we've really cut down on the number of things that we mailed, even when I first got here 9 years ago.
Are we able to have residents opt into electronic communication only, like some of us do with like our state credit card statements, or do we have to send paper like bills as well, tax?
I'm going to throw that back to Brian.
No, you can't. The law actually fairly recently was changed. You can have an opt-in program. There's some hooks to it, but it wasn't really ready when I looked at it last time. I probably looked 2 years ago, and it wasn't just the few towns that had tried it, it just didn't work well. The residents actually didn't really like it, to be honest. And the opt-in percentage was very low. There's something about tax bills. People like to get them. And I haven't quite figured it out, but that's still on my list though, because you're right. It's an obvious question of, can we get them somehow electronically to people? But you'd be surprised how many want them paper-wise.
Yeah.
But one would think more and more, more and more, we're electronic, right? As far as getting bills, et cetera. I mean, you can get almost any bill electronically. So I would think it's something we still should continue to look at, because that's a lot of money that could be saved year after year if you could get, I don't know, a third to a half of residences to agree to take theirs electronically.
Yeah, I mean, I could see, again, I think clearly it's been looked at, maybe it hasn't been ideal, but maybe it's another opportunity to relook at it. And again, depending what the breakdown of bills is, but yeah, this is me speaking as myself, but like, if it's a click to pay digital bill, I pay it right away. When I get a thing in the mail and I got to call a number or go to a website, like it sits on my desk a little bit longer, right? And then, my mortgage statement stuff, the stuff that my mortgage is paying for me, again, it's like, every time I look at it, it like gives me anxiety. So I just don't look at it. So again, if I could opt in, I would 100% opt in, but again, probably not relevant to this budget, but be excited to look into that a little more.
Yeah, we'll continue to look into that. I just got a call from a lady today down in Florida, and she's a retiree, and she insisted on sending me a check. She wouldn't pay online because you can't pay online. And she didn't want to. She said she doesn't trust online. so she had to send me a check. It's funny. Part of it's a generational thing. So maybe it'll get more, more audience as we go on in time.
Right.
It's definitely generational, no doubt about it.
Yeah, there are still people who want to come in and they want to pay their bills in person. And, when they give you the bill, you get a piece of their mind at the same time. So, but we are seeing less and less of that traffic. And, I always, tell the employees you've got less and less chances to make a good first impression, when people come in, because you see people so rarely. So, it makes customer service that much more important.
Brian, how does that work with escrow? Like you mail a bill to the resident and then they get a copy, or they just electronically get it or something?
There's a few large national tax services that work with the banks, and they get files. So we actually deliver it out to our printer, and the printer delivers it out to those national tax services. So that's all electronic, which is great. But yes, we still have to mail the tax bill to the resident. So.
Okay.
So you still mail the tax bill, even though it's being paid by the escrow account?
Correct.
Okay, no, because I need the tax bill. Okay, so Eric, anything else from you?
No, thank you.
Okay, Marcy?
Yeah, just the same question I've asked many others, which is under dues and membership. Any thoughts on what that is? I know it's gone down, but what types of things fall into that category?
Yeah, we handle a lot of, I'm just going to get out of the full screen so I can go grab that memo. We
Kathy,
handle.
can you click on the there you go. Sorry.
Oh, there we go.
For once, Andrew, I beat you to it.
Yeah,
Okay, this is what we're looking at right here.
Yeah, we handle a lot of dues and memberships, for the town, as well as, we handle one for the town for the MMA, for the MMA dues. Also for the Managers Association, there's 2 sets of dues for that, for the Personnel Association, and also for procurement. So it's, that really covers, covers a number of dues.
Thank you. That was my only question. Still trying to learn, so that was helpful. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. Tim? Okay, he said
No
no.
question.
I think I got everybody, but AP.
Oh, sorry, can I,
Go
I
ahead.
had
Go ahead, Adam.
question. How does the deferred comp and vacation buyout and long-term disability work? Can you explain those in the budget?
Sure. So those are contractual items in the town administrator's contract. The deferred comp is selectmen pay a percentage of my base salary into deferred comp. The percentage is 6% at this point. The vacation buyout is in the contract. I have the ability to either carry over 5 days or to buy back 5 days. Historically, I had been buying back a number of days. I don't always use them all, and wanted to make sure that those are properly accounted for in the budget. So I may not use that, but it needs to be accounted in case that I do. And then the town does pay for up to $1,200 of a long-term disability policy for me, and that's contractual as well.
Adam?
Thank you for the clarification on that.
You're welcome.
Back to AP.
Mark, you might have mentioned this already. I might have missed it, but in the employee training, what's the contracted services, John, DEI?
So that is a lot of the Gene John DEI is the items, the things that are being transferred back over to Personnel Board, which have a broader training than simply just staff in the Selectman's office. So sexual harassment, DEI training. We did some DEI training last year with the department heads. I think the thought is to continue that and potentially broaden it out to other employees. That is the items that are going to be transferring back into Personnel Board budget, and those discussions can take place there as to what stays.
Okay, but those aren't in the Personnel Board budget as of now, right?
I think some aspect of them may be reflected. There may be some double counting, but no, it's not a 1-for-1 at this point.
Yeah. So right now I'm looking at it and it's the same number as last year. So.
Yep.
So
Yep.
just overall, right, the budget is going to be shifted. Okay.
Yeah, and to what degree, Andrew, I'm not sure. So
Okay.
that'll be a discussion at the next Personnel Board meeting.
Okay.
So Brian, will you keep us up to date on that one and get us the revised BOS one once it's decided that this comes out for sure, and then what it does to the Personnel Board, so we know what the two.
Yes, we wanted to mention it tonight because we know that's going to shift a little bit.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, Andrew.
My favorite one, in-state travel. Pretty good jump. Like you've never historically been at that level, so I think it's just.
Yeah, I think it's looking to to account for some additional travel for some of the procurement training. Should that go back to in person? When we had Lori in our office, she had her MCPPO certification, and unfortunately, when you have to take some of those classes, they're multi-day classes for a whole week, and she's going in and out of Boston every day for travel, for parking, for things of that nature. So I don't, Melanie does not have that level of training. She's starting to get there, and I'm trying to take advantage of what we can through online, but I'm not sure to what extent we're going to be able to continue having that benefit, if we do see a light at the end of the tunnel that's not an oncoming train that allows us to get back to some of this in-person training. And, it's going to be a little more expensive with travel and parking and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think the same question for you that I have with the other people is, it seems like a lot of in-state travel and a lot of employee training I understand you're paying for a bulk here for all the employees, right? But
yep.
A good chunk of this is for the 4 employees that sit in the BOS, right?
Yeah, we could take another look at that, Andrew, and see if we can bring that number down.
Yeah, I caught the selectmen's meeting, with Chief Achilles and what he was trying to do for training, and
Yep.
that was $4,000, and this is $6,000, right? So it's just one of those. I think if we're going to be sticklers on training, we should be sticklers across the board, or we should be generous with training and be generous across the board.
I agree. Look, my philosophy is, we can train people and make them, as productive, and as versatile as we can, or not train them, and they're going to end up leaving and going someplace where they're going to get that training, so I think it's important to, to get the most out of the employees and, to the extent we can. So I think training is important. It's something that we should, try to do as much as we can.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm in favor of training. So I'm saying your number is fine. I just think your number should be equally spread out amongst other people, and we shouldn't be sticklers, and it just needs to be fair, right?
Yep.
But I feel that people should be trained. I think it's very important, but I think it just should be fair.
Yep. No, I agree. And, and like I said, we are, I'm sharing an employee with Brian, and, to the extent that we can help, provide some training, I'm willing to help, pay for training for Katie that may have more benefit to Brian than it does to me. So, that there's those pieces too. And some of the things with Katie, that we may need training. I'm not sure what we need for her yet either. So I want to make sure that we have that ability to get her what she needs. That is still it's still very much a work in progress. Like I said, I think as much more on my side than it is on Brian's. She's very in tune and very adept, I think, with what Brian needs right now. So it's freeing, I think, in my mind, at least what I'm seeing, it's freeing David up in Brian's office to be able to do more of what the assistant collector should be doing.
Great.
All right, so I only have one question. Remind me what the mileage stipend is. I forgot.
The mileage stipend, that's contractual for me. That's, that's mileage.
That's what I thought. Enough said. Yep. Okay. And then go back again to the minutes. So what do you mean? What does minutes from PB? What's PB?
Those are Vanessa's notes. So I honestly am not sure what that side comment means.
Okay. So that's fine. Okay. Any other questions on BOS? 2%. Okay, so now let's talk to Mr. Sabelli. So I will bring this one over. Okay, everybody see the assessor's budget? Yes? Possibly? Yep. Yes. Okay, good. Okay, where's Paul?
Right here.
You
hear me?
Yep. So we saved the best for last.
You want to go to the salaries first?
Yeah,
second page?
Yeah.
Okay, so keep in mind about 79% of the budget is salaries. We're operating with one less set of benefits and I don't know, probably 500 or 600 hours less than we had 22 years ago when I started. The increase in the salaries you're going to see here, Mark alluded to it earlier. Lori moved up from his department to my department and replaced our deputy assessor. The deputy assessor was a young lady who we had gotten right out of college to come to our office. So obviously Lori has 16 or 18 years of municipal experience. So really the increase is in that position, and it's just bringing Lori. And she came over to our department at the same amount of money. There was no raise. It was a lateral move. So that's really the increase in the salary line item. Any questions on that? She also had a little bit of longevity too. Obviously, Corinne didn't have any.
Okay, so to advisory, Barbara Sperry is shared between two departments, between Paul's department and the Board of Health. Does Board of Health have her in at 24 hours? Does anybody know?
So it's a 24-16 split, but it's, obviously we flex as needed as well.
Okay, all right, but they do have it in 24, so they're not asking for a full-time in their budget like they did last year. All right, let's go back to this. Okay.
Yeah, and that was a 25-hour position in the assessors when I started, like I said.
So what set of benefits don't you have now that you did have?
When I started, the position was 25 hours. It was a benefited position. It's no longer. So that shared position uses the Board of Health set of benefits. So they had a set and I had a set.
Okay, all right, so we're down to, we used to have two and we got one because she's one person. All right, okay.
Yeah, I think we had like I think the Board of Health position was like 30 hours and ours was 25 or something like that, Kathy. So, now we're one set, 40 hours, good to go.
All right, so back to the budget. Okay, let me start with AP. You want to start this one?
Well, you want me to finish?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Paul. I thought, okay, go ahead,
But
sorry.
basically what we did is we offset that increase under management consultant. Management consulting we use for three main things. It is for personal property. We outsource the personal property evaluation. That includes appraisals of our 504s, which we talked about last year. Those are the utility companies that are required, appraisals are required by the Department of Revenue. What we cut was cyclical inspections, just for all the new people on advisory. We have to go through every property in town. We have to re-inspect it on once every 10 years. That's a Department of Revenue guideline that you have to do. So we do it over an 8-year period. 2 years, we're in a certification with the Department of Revenue, which is just a big audit. So we don't do any cyclical inspections for that. So right now, over the next 4 years, we're going to be doing cyclical inspections on single-family homes. We need to do about 2,600 over those 4 years. So that's really what we, it breaks down to about 650 inspections a year. So we backed that down a little bit to offset the Lori's salary, just to try to keep a reasonable budget. Hopefully we'll be able to make that up in later years is my hope. Otherwise we'll stretch it out a little bit longer and go beyond the 4 years, which we should be able to do if necessary. What else do I want to tell you about? What are we talking about? Training, obviously, most of that's going to be used for Lori to get her up and running. She has no assessing experience. She has great general experience in municipalities. Unfortunately, we spent a boatload of money training Corinne to get her certification in assessing. These courses are very expensive. There's about 7 of them that you have to do. So we're starting over again, which is unfortunate. And what was the other one that we've been asking? Travel, in-state travel. Mm-hmm. So in-state travel, remember, we're out on the road a lot. So $1,200 will be out for doing inspections for mileage. There's no stipends or anything in my contract. So we just, whatever we do for mileage, we put in. And the other thing is we just attend the summer conference. The summer conference will be both for me and Lori. It's for a week. So we'll go down to that annually. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think we got a few. So AP, you want to start?
Well, you took the wind out of my sail. You covered travel and you covered training, so that was good. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, dues and subscriptions, and I don't know if there's anything to write home there. I'm assuming something went up $25, but that's about it.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's your official assessors, dues to whatever organizations.
Yeah, we have the Worcester County, the Mass Association, and renewal for my certification.
All right, I'm good.
Let's see, who do I see next? Adam?
Yeah, hi, Paul.
How are you?
Good. I'm going to blame this question on being new here.
No, we're here to educate you.
Now, I got lost a little bit on the management consulting explanation and what that's used for and why the decrease.
Okay, so what we did is it's for personal property valuation. Okay, most towns outsource personal property. And that accounts for, and we have a 3-year contract. So it's $7,200. And then we have to do appraisals on 504s. That's a use code, 504s. And they're essentially the utility companies, 4 utility companies. Those have to be done annually. That's $8,000. So that's 15.2 of the money. Okay. The rest is what's called cyclical inspections. Again, we outsource that. We'll bring somebody to come in. They'll come out and go through the properties. They're going to come visit everybody. Again, we'll be doing the single family homes. They come out, they re-inspect your house, they remeasure the house, they re-photograph the exterior of the house. What we did is we kind of, again, we should be doing probably 650 inspections. I backed it down to 515 next year. And again, we'll try to make that up. And it was just to offset the increase for Lori. I wanted to make sure we were under 3% on our budget.
Okay, so all of that was under management consulting. I see.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I have no other questions about the budget. Thank you.
Marcy?
No questions, Paul. Thank you for the explanation. It's very helpful. And that's all I have.
Tim?
Questions, thank you.
Eric?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, so Paul, what have you got in the computer software service and support line?
Computer software is the Patriot software, which is our real estate software. Annual fee for that's $5,700. And then we run a separate software for personal property. And that runs $1,500. And that also includes cloud hosting. That software is up in the cloud.
Okay, I just thought you might want to put that with the IT since everything else is there, but that's fine.
No, software I want to keep underneath. And quite frankly, we've talked to Jay and I don't think he really wants softwares in his, trying to just consolidate all the hardware under his.
Well, he's got a lot of software there too, but okay. Now, management consulting, let's go back to this in the personal property piece of it. So when I fill out my businesses, so everybody understands personal property is basically business personal property. So it's your desk, it's your chairs, it's everything inside your office that moves. So when I fill out my personal property return, which is the most dreaded return ever, and send that in.
I just mailed it to you, Kathy.
I know you did.
Make sure you don't lose it.
I'm looking forward to it, right? I'm waiting for it with bated breath. Truly, there's no return. I hate doing more in this world, my whole career than tangible personal property returns. And every accountant feels that same way, but I digress. Okay, so I send it into you and then you send it to this company as far as what it says, and they take it from there as far as, really coming up with what they think the values are of each class.
Yeah, they're gonna update. So you get a list of what you have for equipment attached to that form of list.
Right.
And you basically can edit it. Clearly, anybody new would have to fill the whole form out. You're going to edit that. You're going to send it back to us. Yes, we'll forward it to them. They'll make all the corrections and value any new equipment, take anything off that shouldn't be there. It also includes in that contract, Kathy, is they'll go out for 5 days and visit all the new accounts, and they'll list them from the beginning. And they'll also any account we might not have gotten back a return in a while, we may have them go knock on the door and update that as well.
And I think, if I were to tell you that maybe this tax is one that may be slightly underreported in the aggregate, I think every dollar you spend sending someone out to knock on the door probably is going to generate a multiple return, is my advice on this one. Okay, so when I put what I think the value is of desk, they pay no attention to that. They look at a chart and say, this is what it's worth.
Essentially, unless you buy a lot of used equipment, then obviously they're going to take a look at that.
Okay. I mean, I always put zero, whatever. Okay. So anyone have any other questions for Paul? We're going to get to the really big question for Paul in a second, but anything else on his budget? Again, it's below 3%. So I'm glad you've got Lori. I know how capable she is. So that's good.
Phenomenal.
Okay. Okay. So yesterday, Andrew and I had a Zoom with Paul to basically ask the overarching question. When will you be able to give us some estimate to use as far as the 1-1-22 split between residential and CIP? And he has said about 3 weeks. So we're just going to wait and see what he comes up with and then start. I would think, Brian, then we want to start using that in the actual spreadsheet to really look at what we think the projected year-over-year tax increase is going to be. But it won't be perfect because he won't have all the info, but he has been doing this for 22 years. And I guess it will be well in the ballpark when he comes up with it.
So we've given you scenarios. Brian has given you spreadsheets with an 8, 10, and 12% change. The residential increasing, commercial industrial is expected to be flat. So what we're going to really focus on is the residential to see where that goes. You all know the market in 21 is just crazy. I'm going through the sales now. So yeah, we are expecting a big increase. The question is, 10, I would say it's definitely going to be at least a 10. Will we need to up that estimate? That's what I'm hoping to give a little bit better information on. And again, it's not going to be anything that I know exactly. It's just that, an estimate.
Yep. But at least it's an educated estimate, right? Very educated.
Yep.
Okay. Overlay. I know what the number is now. Do you think you'll adjust that further before town meeting?
No.
You think you're done?
I think we're running, what do we run at, 480?
Yep.
Yep, that'll be good.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Paul, Brian, Carla, or Mark before we say goodnight? Okay. Thank you guys for coming. Really, it helps us to get all you four here at the same time because you're so interrelated with what you do. So thank you for coming.
Hey, Kathy, before they go, I don't know if we want to cover it now or subsequent meeting, but the cash free set aside.
The free cash set aside?
Free cash set aside. Cash.
Brian, are you still here? Where is he?
Yep, he's here.
Okay. So Brian, any further thoughts to that?
No, the board did not take a position on it in the Board of Selectmen I'm referencing. And their philosophy or their theory, at least for now, is to wait and see what happens with the roads article. As you know, the roads article is 400,000, and there's been some talk of either reducing that or eliminating it. So they were really interested in seeing what's going to happen with that article. So we're holding it for now, but it doesn't mean anything. It could go anywhere.
Yeah. So, I still think we need to have an overarching discussion, which is what you wanted to, about stabilization just as a philosophy. Is it time to bring it back up and have town meeting opine on whether we really should enhance that? We basically got $600,000, right? So what you just said surprises me. When we met with Karen, at least when we got off that meeting, she clearly said she does not want the road number being 0. And she seemed to think 400 was the right number. We did some math that night. We got more math to do. I've talked to Jason too, to really come up with a number that we think gives us money to do normal road work after we get the big project downtown and on its little ancillary stuff done. So we made some progress trying to understand the numbers, but we're not there yet. But she definitely did not say she wanted to see 0 in the road maintenance number.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think after I spoke to her last time, she is going to advocate to keep that in there. So it's a matter of her getting with the capital committee, capital committee, and kind of going through that a little more.
So we agree there's more work to be done. But
Yes.
if you look at the numbers we've got right now, it looks like she has no normal road money at all. Because she's going to use what's there, what's already been set aside, what's already been approved, and then all Chapter 90 money that has been either set aside specifically or still available to finish the $2.5 million downtown road project that includes all the sidewalks, et cetera, and CSX, which means there's nothing left to start a new contract for just normal road redo. And there's clearly plenty of roads around this town that need work on them. So I think, TBD as far as what we end up with there, but she definitely said, please don't do 0. Okay. All right. So we will get to the bottom of that one too. So Mark, anything else that we know? When do you think a formal decision will be made as far as the date of town meeting?
I think the selectmen are shooting to make a decision on February 1st. We've had indications from the town clerk that he has no problem doing the Saturday before the election, but does not want to do the Saturday after the election. So you could do the 7th, but not the 14th. Town council's not available the 14th. There are concerns that if we do the 7th and we don't finish in one day, the next day is Mother's Day. And, people wouldn't want to continue to the 8th. It seems like we may be forcing ourselves to May 21st. I'm not sure. That's really all that I know at this point. We did ask, Tim Davis did reach out to some of the big user groups of baseball, lacrosse, and soccer to do a quick survey to get a sense of, where they value, some of the sports in terms of town meeting. Would you come to town meeting if sports, if fields were closed for the day, type of thing? And we didn't get a whole lot of response. We got a little over 60 responses, and they were a little bit all over the map. So we're hoping to get some additional feedback in that, but I think the board is just going to have to set a date. And if you're asking me, I think it's in the value that was placed by the selectmen, board of health, town clerk, moderator. I think an outdoor meeting is preferable. So I think you're looking at either May 7th or May 21st.
And they are going to, because what happened last time, which was about, I forget the exact date, but it was about the 21st, right?
It was the 22nd.
So of course, what happened is there were games that day, and apparently some people were pretty unhappy that we were having town meeting with those games. So you're thinking they might actually put a kibosh on any games that day to keep that from happening?
They may do that. I don't know. I mean, people are just going to have to make choices, and I think that's really what's going to be the end result. Do you want to come to town meeting? Do you want to go to the games? Can you balance it? What are the issues that are driving people to come or not to come? So,
and they're leaning toward outdoor.
Yeah, that was the sense. They wanted to do it somewhere between end of April, end of May. I tried to get them to stay away from too close to the end of the fiscal year, because that puts a lot of pressure on the finance team as you're trying to close out the year. And so it really gets tough if you start to get into June, and then you've only got 3 weeks to close out the fiscal year, and really puts, especially on Carla, puts a lot of pressure on her.
Well, I think it put pressure on you last year too. I remember Mr. Sabelli very nicely asking me to make sure that we limited contact till the end of the year. But of course, the previous year was much later, right? June, the last week, last Saturday in June. I think if they go April 30th, it's really dangerous trying to do it outside. It can be cold on April 30th.
It is. Well, I think the rain is, you're not going to see, historically, the temperature is not going to change all that much, but the chance of rain is a lot higher in April than it is in May.
Anyway. All right. Will you keep us posted as soon as something happens that?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Anything else we should know that we may not know?
I think that's the biggest piece right now. We're just like the selectmen to make some more decisions in terms of some of these pieces with the budget. Capital is meeting on Monday night. They are meeting with Karen to talk about roads and a couple of other things. So hopefully they can finalize, their recommendation for capital Monday night, and we'll have an idea of where we stand with that 400 number. I agree that she's not looking for zero, but the infusion of the complete streets money that she got, which was not anticipated, how does that change what she thinks she may need for the year without leaving the well completely dry for road money? So
I think it takes a negative to zero. That's what it does. I think she'd overdrawn that account. Sometimes it's hard to get all the numbers straight, right, as far as on a spreadsheet. Yeah. But I think that all I did was get her back to zero, given the cost of the going under the railroad tracks, or going over the railroad tracks. So anyway,
it all makes sense in Karen's head. It's just getting it out in the right order for everybody else to try and understand it. She understands it. It's difficult for everybody else too.
Yep, I agree with that statement. So we just got to get it out, right? It's there. Just got to get it out and put it on a spreadsheet. Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Good night.
All right.
Okay.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye, Carla. Thank you, Carla.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. Good night. Okay. 10 o'clock. We didn't do too bad. Okay. Anybody have any other comment as far as budget stuff goes? Next week is Council on Aging, and I'm hoping DPW water, although Eric, can you reach out to Karen and see if that works?
Yeah, so I want to confirm that with you, Kathy. I'm happy to reach out to her right now and see if that works for her. Do you envision it like last time we slotted her at like 8:30 p.m. or?
Yes, let's do Council on Aging first. Okay.
Okay, and then second comment I just want to make, and this is more just reiterating, I know I communicated previously over email, but I will not be available next week. So I don't think that precludes Karen from being there, but just FYI.
No, and if you wanted us to wait, we could. We don't have to do it next week. It's up to you.
I mean, I've looked at it pretty closely with her, given how that operates as an enterprise fund, and also given the adjustments that were made on her primary budget. You know, we looked at it, everything was reasonable. I think it was almost actually negative year over year due to some of the aging of debt. So, you know, we looked at it, didn't spend an incredible amount of time on it, really put the focus on the primary budget. So if you guys want to look at it, again, I don't think you need me. I'm not gonna be able to explain things in an earth-shattering manner. So if she's ready and you guys are ready, let's not slow down.
All right, so we'll go forward. Is everybody else available next week? Because we need everybody else. I don't know about Tom, so we need the 5 of us probably.
Kathy, any word? We should have asked Mark before he left. Any word on AG approving our stuff?
When I asked Jim about it the last time, he still says it's February. So it's, you know, it's 90. They've got 90 days from the time they get it. So let's assume he knew when he sent it in, so he just added 90 days onto it. So he thinks it's February. So it's coming, and we're not too far away. You know, it's already the end of January. So very soon we should get that sometime in February. But until then, we still got 5. Okay, so far everybody can come next week because that's 5 of us. So we got a quorum, and I'll check.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Is there anyone still left in the audience? Sam, any public comment? Or Mr. Stivers? Seeing none.
Kathy, when are we going to cover our budget and reserve fund, just to get those out of the way?
I don't know. I was looking at it today. I've got a couple more to add to it and we've got to get personnel board here too. So it will be February. I mean, we've got to start looking at the articles. There's not a lot of contentious non-money articles. There's one. You've got a citizens petition that's fighting one. So we've got dueling articles that are going to have to be discussed together. So we do have one. So we need to get into those two. So we've got room, Andrew, in February, especially, you know, we're going to be defining. If they push this, my guess is the meeting is going to be the 21st when they're all said and done, but we'll see. So we're doing okay as far as time goes. So we will get to those two and get that out of the way and make sure that we've got our minute piece of it taken care of too. Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Eric.
Aye.
Marcy.
Aye.
Andrew.
Aye.
Tim.
Aye.
Adam.
Aye.
And Kathy's aye. So 6-0, Claire, at 10:03 p.m. Thank you, guys.